In this video, you will learn how to implement a search bar inside Angular. So here I already prepared several things. First of all, we have an API localhost 3004/articles, where inside we're getting an array of objects with ID, slug and title. Secondly, I already created two files. First of all, article interface TS. This is the interface for the article that we're getting from the backend. And secondly, article service TS. This is the service which gets the articles from the backend. Most importantly, inside getArticles, we're getting back an articles array. And additionally to that, it is created that we're getting search value inside our getArticles. In this case, we know, okay, we're not just getting articles, we also can filter them. This is exactly what our search bar will do. This is why here inside our API request, we're providing a query parameter title like search value. So the first thing that we want to do, we want to fetch our articles inside our app component. This is why here I'm writing implements on init, because we want to fetch them on initialize. And also I want to inject here inside this service, and it was articles service, which is coming from article service. And after this we can define ng on init, but I don't want to fetch our articles here, I want to create an additional method for it, because later we will want to call it separately. This is by here fetch data, and this is just a void function where we want to call this .article service get articles, and as you can see we must provide inside search value. By default we don't have any search value, this is why let's just create it and set to an empty string. And now here inside we can provide this .search value, so our getArticles is working. And we want to subscribe and get back our list of articles that we want to save somewhere. This is why here we must create an array where we will save our data from the API. And it will be our list of articles, and this is an article interface array, and by default it is an empty array. Now here inside our subscribe, when we're getting articles, we can simply set this articles equal articles. So this is how our fetch data is looking like. We simply fetch our articles, we're applying inside this search value, and we're getting back a list of articles which we're saving inside our property. Most importantly, our getArticles method is working when we're providing such value as an empty string. It will simply return for us all our articles. Now on initialize we want to call our fetchData method. This is why this fetchData, and we're just calling it without arguments. And the last thing that we must prepare here is a form, because actually our search bar will be an input inside a form. And in order to do that we must create a form by using reactive forms. This is why here on the top I want simply to create search form, and I want to assign here this FB. But we don't have FB, this is why here inside constructor we must inject FB, and this is our form builder. Now here we can use this .fb, .nonnullable, .group, and inside we must provide just a single property, and it will be our search value, and by default it is an empty string. This is exactly how we create reactive form that we can now use inside our HTML. So now we must write our HTML. As you can see, I don't have any, but I want to tell you something. Here inside app component CSS, I already prepared quite a lot of styles regarding our component, and you can take all the styles or any of the files from the description box below. There is a source code there. But now let's jump inside our app component HTML and write our markup. First of all, here we will have class container. Let's close this div, and inside we will have our form. So here we have form, and we're providing here form group. And this form group is exactly the form that we just created. This is our search form. After this we must apply a class. It will be search bar. And we have here ng-submit method, where we must create some method, for example on search submit, where inside we don't need to get anything, because we're storing everything inside our form. Now let's close our form and create an input inside. An input here will be with type text, placeholder, search, and form control name. And form control name is the most important part. This is the thing that we just created. This is our search value. This is why here we are setting search value, and then it will be automatically binded and updated between our component and our markup. And the last thing here is our class, which will be search bar input. And let's close our input. As you can see in browser, we are getting an error. Property on search submit does not exist. This is why we must create this function inside our TS file. So here on the bottom, I will create on search submit, and what we want to do, we want to refetch our data with the new search value. This is why here we must override this search value with the value from the form, and it will be this search form dot value dot search value. And as you can see here, it is either string or undefined, and our service won't work with undefined. This is why I want to write or empty string. So if it is not there, then it is an empty string. After this, we simply want to refetch data by calling fetchData function. And here inside it already uses this search value. This is why it is important that we update it beforehand. As you can see in browser, we don't have any errors. Now we can type something and hit enter, and obviously nothing is happening. But is it really like this? We can open network and check here. And if we will open fetch, you can see that essentially it works. By default, we have this request with title like empty string. Then I typed something, and here is title like, and this is the second request after hitting enter, which actually means I can provide here full string, hit enter, and we're getting this API call. So everything is working fine. We're getting data back. They are filtered. You can see it here. We're getting in the preview all our records. These are 5. Now after this, we're getting 0 because nothing is like this title. The only thing that we're missing is the list of our elements. So here let's create one more container with class articles table. And let's close this div and render inside one more div, which will be every single article that we have. This is why here is the class article, and we want to use here ng4 with let article of our articles that we have inside TS file. Now inside we simply want to render article.title. Let's check if it's working. As you can see in browser, on initialize we successfully rendered all our articles from the backend. Now here I can search for something that does not exist, for example foo, and I'm not getting any data back. Because essentially what happens, we're here inside on search submit, we set our search value, we fetched our data, this is this function, we're making an API call with new search value, and we updated our list of articles, which means they were filtered from the backend. Now here, if we write something which exists, for example 5, we're getting filtered data, 5 tips and 25 coding terms. Most importantly, that this code is extremely scalable. We're not just filtering our data on the client, which is limiting, we're making an API call, which actually means our client will never be slow because we simply filter data on the backend and not on the client. And actually, if you're interested to know how to build a custom slider inside Angular without any additional libraries, make sure to check this video also.